Today on Business Insight, we take a look at Nigeria's 2024 budgetary allocation to the education sector. Welcome aboard. I am Vivian Oguche, and it's such a pleasure to have you join us on the show today. Well, let's get this ball rolling with the day's top stories. Alfreda Ambibasi is standing by.
Good morning and welcome. The federal government has revealed plans to introduce a green surcharge on imported vehicles as part of its efforts to boost tax revenues, as outlined in the 2024 budget of 26 trillion naira. The surcharge, which is expected to generate around 2.6 trillion naira in net taxes through Nigerian customs, is one of 18 strategies detailed in the Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, MTEF. The surcharge aligns with the government's push for additional taxes on imported vehicles, including the Import Adjustment Tax. This reflects the government's commitment to revenue generation and the promotion of environmentally friendly transportation, with more details on the surcharge anticipated. And away from that, the African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank, and the Export-Import Bank of China have finalized a crucial deal worth $600 million to bolster trade and economic collaboration between Afreximbank and member states in China. The agreement, signed in Beijing, aims to promote financial cooperation, trade financing, and the exchange of resources, goods, and knowledge between Africa and the People's Republic of China. The collaboration marks a significant milestone coinciding with the 10th anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative, underlining the strengthening relationship between the two regions. Both parties have committed to using this agreement as a stepping stone to expand cooperation across credit, equity investment, capital markets, trade finance, personnel exchange, and knowledge sharing. And in new developments, the European Union, EU, has signed 7 financing agreements totaling 212.5 million euros during a visit to Nigeria by European Commissioner for International Partnerships, Jutta Urpilainen. These agreements are part of the Global Gateway Africa-Europe Investment Package, which reflects the EU's commitment to investing up to 150 billion euros in Africa from 2021 to 2027. The funding is directed towards key sectors such as trade, energy, migration, and agriculture, which with a focus on promoting inclusive green and digital development, regional economic integration, and sustainable growth. The initiatives include supporting migration, improving trade competitiveness, advancing renewable energy, ensuring food security, and promoting clean cooking solutions and pastoral economy development. Up next is the stock, commodities, and currency market trends. After this break, stay tuned. Thank you for staying with us. At the close of Friday's trading session on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, NGX, a total of 205,893,205 shares were traded in 4,986 deals. This corresponds to a market value of 6,380,220,275 naira and 30 kobo. Compared to Thursday's trading day, the data for Friday indicates a 31% decrease in trading volume, a 42% increase in turnover, but a 9% decrease in the number of deals. The current market capitalization of the Nigerian Stock Exchange is 36.8 trillion naira. In total, 115 equities listed on the NGX were involved in trading activities. The day concluded with 14 gainers and 20 losers. Thomas Wyatt, Nigeria, led the gainers with a 10% increase in share price, closing at 3.63 naira per share. This was followed by Ikeja Hotel, which saw a 7.51% increase, Omatek Ventures and ICO Insurance. On the losing side, Cadbury Nigeria experienced the most significant price decline of 10%, closing at 12.6 naira per share. This was followed by Flow Mills Nigeria, Sovereign Trust Insurance and Guinea Insurance. Fidelity Bank had the highest trading volume with 28.1 million shares traded, followed by FCMB Group, Zenith Bank and United Bank for Africa. And to Malawi, at the conclusion of Friday's trading day on the Malawi Stock Exchange, MSE, a total of 375,190 shares were traded, equivalent to market value of 88,080,510 Malawian kwacha and 76 tambala. Compared to the previous MSE trading day on Thursday, Friday's data reveals a 78% increase in trading volume, but an 85% decrease in turnover. The current market capitalization of the Malawi Stock Exchange stands at 6,160 billion Malawian kwacha. In total, 11 equities listed on the MSE involved in trading activities. The day ended with only one gainer, National Insurance Company Holdings, experiencing a 0.21% increase in share price. On the losing side, Icon Properties had a slight decrease of 0.06%, closing at 17.99 Malawian kwacha per share. This was followed by Telecom Networks Malawi, Airtel Malawi and National Bank of Malawi, with no change in share price. Malawi Property Investment Company had the highest trading volume, with 154,287 shares traded, followed by Icon Properties, FMB Capital Holdings and FDH Bank. And in the current commodities market, wheat is being traded at 584.25 US cents. Gold is valued at $1,981.04 US dollars. Silver is priced at $23.55 US dollars. Copper is being exchanged at $3.54 US dollars, and Brent crude oil is trading at $92.16 US dollars. And it's a wrap on the news this morning. I am Alfreda Ambe-Ibasi. Join Vivian Oguche for the next phase of Business Insights. Stay with us.
So this week, we continue to take a look at Nigeria's 2024 budget pegged at 26.01 trillion naira. Now, this is about 20% increase from the 2022 budget and the highest in Nigeria's history. But the focus today is on education, the education sector, which has bagged 1.5 trillion naira. Does this meet global standards? Does this budgetary allocation improve the quality of learning and retain the best hands in the system? These are questions we will be seeking answers to on the show today. And joining me in-house is Franca Asiegbunam. She is a Learning and Development Administrator at JetLink IT Academy, which has a global degree partnership with the UK NCC Education. Franca has experience in educational consultancy, learning development, and startup management for over 3 decades now. Franca, you're welcome aboard.
Thank you.
It's so nice to have you on the show. Yeah, so today we are going to dig in deep into the budgetary allocation to the education sector. But first, let's take a look at a package put together by my colleague, Alfreda Ambebasi.
Nigeria's education sector budget allocation currently stands at 1.79 trillion naira, representing 8.2% of the total budget. While this marks an improvement from the previous year's 5.4% allocation, it still falls short of UNESCO's recommended benchmark, which suggests allocating 4 to 6% of GDP to education. Nigeria faces significant educational challenges, including an estimated 20.2 million out-of-school children and inadequate educational facilities. These issues have triggered strikes by academic bodies like ASUU, impacting education quality. Experts in this sector stress the need to prioritize education funding as it is vital for Nigeria's economic development. According to other experts, the lack of proper funding leads to deteriorating educational infrastructure and quality, posing long-term consequences. Furthermore, stakeholders say in order to address these challenges, Nigeria must reduce wasteful public spending and allocate more resources to education and human capital development. This is crucial to retain talent, combat brain drain, and build a skilled workforce for the competitive 21st century. According to stakeholders in this sector, the nation's educational sector requires increased funding and attention in order to tackle its challenges and secure a brighter future for its youth. Alfreda Ambebasi for Business Insights.
All right, so let's hit the ground running now. Franca, I don't know if you want to react to the report we just watched by Alfreda Ambebasi, where she talked about global standards, 4.6 GDP to be allocated to the education sector. Does status quo in Nigeria meet these standards?
Obviously not. There's always been a deficit in the provision for the sector, the educational sector, compared to the UNESCO expectation of which is global standard. And it's been an ongoing debate. Various sectors of the economy have looked into that, and we're aware that just as it was said, there's still yet a lot to be done in that space in terms of making money available to be able to meet up with the needs of the education sector.
So why is it important for priority to be given to the education sector?
Simply because that is the sector that develops the manpower that the economy requires to grow. That is the sector that that takes care of the human resource, which is very critical for development of the industry. We all know that over the years, there's just been that discrepancy in the quality of graduates and what the school system provides in relation to their productivity in the economic sector. When we say that, we are talking about the putting them to work. There is an ongoing issue about not having competent skills to serve the industry, and that's coming from inadequate funding of the educational system. So there's a direct impact on the economy.
Yes, you sort of answered my next question because I was going to ask, how does effective budgeting and allocation impact the quality of education in Nigerian schools? But there's something, though, which I know you are aware of, incorporating arts and sports into education and all of that, which I know is part of your experience. Is that an important angle as well that must be looked into?
Well, by that, I guess you are talking about the vocational education, because that's where it sits.
Yes.
Okay, obviously we know that because the academic format of our curriculum hasn't adequately provided for the needs of our society, both socially and economically. And it hasn't enabled the true talents of individuals to be exhibited. Okay, so coming to that question, it is very needful to critically look into the infusion of vocational curriculum into the standard educational system so that it can create the total person. And so you know people's talents are harnessed, and that would also be needful for economic development.
Okay, let's talk about proper allocation of funds. What are some of those gaps, infrastructure-wise, in our educational systems that must be plugged?
Of course, definitely we know about physical structures like the schools and the state of the schools. The schools have to, that has to be looked into. Budget for payment of teachers, and then training for teachers. These are things that need to be looked into, because without competency, the teachers can't develop students with competency. So training of teachers is very critical, and that must be adequately provided for in the budgeting. And I have also looked into the space of capital and recurrent expenditure. And I've realized that a lot of emphasis is placed on recurrent, more emphasis is placed on recurrent expenditure than capital expenditure. Capital expenditure is more sustainable because that's where we talk about the infrastructure. So if more of the money is expended on infrastructure, you talk about laboratories, you talk about adequate classrooms and conducive learning environment for the students, and then training for the teachers, that's where I think more focus should be placed, because with that, you can have a sustainable impact on the educational system, and then also it will guarantee a very high quality output in the educational sector, which would definitely impact on the economy of the nation.
Fantastic. Let's talk about remunerations. You talked about training teachers.
Yes.
Yeah, but how about incentives? So if you have trained teachers and it's not, the sector is not attractive enough, how do you catch the best ones?
That's where we look into giving them what they really are worth. Because it is known clearly that teachers put in a lot. And I always say that that's the beginning of anything that exists. Without teachers, you don't have good doctors. Without teachers, you don't have anything standing. So they actually need to be compensated more. But unfortunately, in this system, they are really graded low. But like in other countries, you know, it's very lucrative to want to be a teacher. I've heard about Nigerians going to China and talking about how much they earn as teachers in China. And that stands for places in like the Middle East as well, and other countries. And that's incentive, because it only makes it easier for them to put in their best. And when they put in their best, then you get best results.
Absolutely. Let's talk about transparency in budgeting and allocation, the processes, right? How does it enhance accountability and prevent mismanagement of funds in the education sector, especially in Nigeria?
I think basically it's the fact that you need to have a basis for evaluation. You don't just allocate funds without having a structure in place to evaluate exactly what the funds have been used for and how the expenditure is impacting the educational system, which is the primary goal of allocating the funds in the first instance. So there has to be a mode of evaluating what has been spent and has it been used appropriately for what it has been allocated to be used for, and the outcome as well, which is very critical, because you can spend money and get no value.
Wow. You know, in a while, I'm going to be putting you on the hot seat. Yeah. Oh, that's fine. Fantastic. But let me ask this question first. In what ways does adequate budgeting and allocation support the training and development of teachers, ultimately improving the overall education sector in Nigeria?
Basically, training is training. You set up opportunities for them to, you can give scholarships to teachers, because I remember way back, I studied education, and I know that there used to be scholarship for those who want to study education when I was in university, and that was an incentive. And of course that comes from the budget as well, because that's provided for. So making teaching lucrative, making it attractive is actually the goal of what we are talking about. So the budget must be positioned in such a way that it would make teaching attractive for the right people, not relegating teaching to be a space where those who can't fit into any other space or sector would end up, because that's what they can get. So that's what I think the budget can do to enhance attracting the right people into the teaching space.
Fantastic. Now let's look at this sector holistically. I mean, you've got ties outside the country, and you know what it is over there. What is it that is done in other climes that we do not do here? What do you think? I mean, I'm asking you to make recommendations now. What should be imported into our education sector to improve that sector?
To be honest, I've been looking into the space of vocational and life skills education. I think that that is what is really lacking in the system, because I have looked into the global space, and I know that countries that are doing well have quite a lot they are doing in the vocational space. I've looked into the Middle East. We know about China. The vocational education is actually infused into the Chinese curriculum right from primary school, and it is calibrated in stages that empowers you to be able to own your own business or do things for yourself without necessarily being a graduate. So I think that's what model we need to bring in here, where we infuse vocational curriculum into our regular schooling system that enables people to learn skills which they can actually use as empowerment. So at the same time as they are getting the regular academic qualification, so that when they are done and there is nothing for them to do, they have a fallback. So I look at that in the space of empowerment and employability, because the critical problem is employability. So here you have graduates who finish from universities and they can actually not function properly in the workspace. So what is the problem? The problem is what they need to function in the workspace is lacking in the schooling curriculum. So if the vocational skill is imputed, and what I also call life skill is what makes you apply the knowledge that you know to make it more effective, and then make you more productive in any system where you find yourself. And these are things that you find in schooling curriculum in countries where they have skilled manpower.
It's interesting you really talked about vocations, right? Because here it used to be called technical colleges in Nigeria, yeah? Yes. In those days. And these days it's been pushed to the background. And then these days you have the BSc, HND dichotomy and all of that. Would you want to speak to that?
Well, like I said, I have looked into the Chinese educational system, and it was quite intriguing to know that the vocational skill curriculum is infused into their traditional educational.
That's where you should start.
We need to look into the curriculum. The curriculum needs to be overhauled.
How about students or graduates who think the blue-collar job is the thing, or the in thing, and the thing to gun for after schooling?
I think that's fading away right now, and I can tell you that.
Right.
Because they are long realizing that even the blue-collar jobs are not existing.
Yeah.
And so you don't want to finish school after 5 years in university, and you are hanging around doing nothing. So right now, I think they are actually taking their lives in their hands and trying to get to do things in the vocational space. So globally, you know, there's global access through the internet. You can actually get certifications and qualifications and skills that can empower you to even get global jobs sitting here. I think that's a trend right now, because I hear the HRs in the industry complaining that they can't retain IT professionals because they are all scramming. Because the world is looking for the skills.
Absolutely.
And if they have managed to get the skill, they want to get the best value for their skill. So they leave. So we are actually losing a lot of manpower right now because we don't have the platform to incubate them. Yeah.
So what are the things to be done to keep these skilled hands in the country?
I think government should still look into the vocational education space. That seems just to be the fundamental thing to be addressed. And also to make sure that the industry rewards those skills at the global level or at par with what is obtainable outside. I'm sure if they know that they can earn, even if it is half as much, they would rather stay here. Because it's not particularly like life out there is so rosy, but you know, it's diving between the devil and the deep blue sea. So I think that if the industry would look into that in terms of compensation, because I also know that people are not paid properly, adequately. It's not only in the teaching sector. So I've had cases of engineers earning ridiculous amount of money that can't even pay their basic bills. So I don't know if government is going to be able to intervene with I hear about the minimum wage stuff, and I don't know how that can happen, but there just has to be a means of recalibrating the wage system so that the job will be attractive for the young people to stay here and work.
Yeah, so before I let you go, as we wrap up this session with you, because we also have another education enthusiast, Inidan, who is in the house, will be joining us shortly. But before I let you go, though, like we said at the beginning, this year, for 2024, about 1.5 trillion naira is what has been allocated to the education sector. That's about a 20% increase from the previous year. What would you like to see when it comes to budgetary allocation to the education sector, which is your sector, really? If you're going to peg an amount now.
I think that's still way below what
way
would be needed.
Below.
Yes, way below.
You like to see tripled, doubled, quadrupled?
More than that.
Aha.
Yes, because we are dealing with a huge space here. You are looking at the number of children at the basic universal education space, which would have the highest population. Meeting those needs will require enormous expenditure. And then you are looking at the secondary level, but more about basic education, which is very, very important. Yes. So more money will be required there because you have the highest population of individuals in that space.
It's interesting you mentioned this, though. Our public schools, what would you like to see? So you're laughing. What's behind that laughter?
Well, that needs a lot of attention. I have to be very honest, because I have physically seen some schools, even in locations where I didn't believe I could see things like that.
Highbrow.
Dilapidated, environment, classrooms without windows. It's really bad. I mean, I'm not talking about the villages or the interiors. I'm talking about right here in Lagos.
Oh.
In a very prominent space in Lagos. I don't want to mention the name here. But it was shocking. And I don't know how many more of such experience you would see going around. I can't explain it. Simply, I can't. Because a lot of money has to be put in that infrastructural space. The environment should be conducive for learning, basically. And again, what baffled me was, what kind of people are you raising in such an environment? Because you have to think about the psychological impact of the environment on the individual. There are environments where you practically know you can't learn anything because it's just not conducive for learning. And I know there are quite a number of them around. That needs attention.
You know, you talked about the situation and what you experienced and how it wasn't palatable at all. In some of these cases, there's overpopulation, right? Where you have these classes overpopulated in public schools. And then you have cases where there are no seats to sit on and no tables to write with, right?
Yes, but what is very devastating is that you, as an individual, will not even feel like entering those compounds when you see what it looks like. So I didn't even bother to check what is inside, because you can imagine what you find inside. Maybe not adequate sitting spaces, just like you have said. But the truth is, those are not places to put young children.
Like we said earlier on, you are a learning and development administrator at JetLink IT Academy, which has a global degree partnership with the UK NCC Education. Your final thoughts on this matter? What would you like to see in Nigeria's education sector?
Vocational and life skills education. Okay. 10 times I will repeat that. Because that's all we need for empowerment. And the unemployment rate is very, very high among the youth. And statistically, they are 75% of the population. So they need attention. So I don't know what else, because what would you be doing with the 25% anyway? Not to pay attention to the 75%. So it's very critical. And there are more, you find out that in the space of these young people, they are more creative. They want to do things for themselves. And that's vocational. A lot of them, you just sit them down for 3 months training, and they can actually start making money. They can set up their own businesses. I have used that model for raising my children. And they are doing well globally today, because I knew a long time ago that was the way. And it didn't stop them from earning degrees anyway. And that's exactly what I'm doing with the JetLink Academy. So right here, you can earn a global degree across 60 countries of the world. You earn while you learn.
Yeah, earn while you learn, but basically vocation.
IT is vocation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure chatting with you, Franca.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I dare to call you a friend of the house now.
That's fine.
All right. Franca Asiebunam is an educationist. She is a learning and development administrator at JetLink IT Academy, like we said earlier on. As we let Franca go, we will be bringing Ini in. So we'll take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. And right now, I have been joined by Ini Dan right here in the house. Ini is the MD, CEO, Brother Art Production. He's also a public affairs analyst, but most importantly, he is an instructor when it comes to vocational skills acquisition, right? Which is why we brought him on to talk to us about the importance of acquiring skills, which was what Franca kept hammering on, right? Ini, thanks for being a part of the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So the slogan for Franca, my guest earlier on, was vocations, 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 right?
Absolutely.
This is your field. Let's talk about the importance of skills acquisition in Nigeria's education sector.
Now, it's just very important that every child is being empowered with skills right from the cradle, because at the end of the day, whatever skill such child is empowered with helps him or her while he or she is growing, and then when he or she becomes an adult. Because at the end of the day, vocation or vocational education is key to every sector in the country. Now, let me take myself for instance. I've always had this talent of arts and all of that, and
Arts?
yeah.
Even when you were growing up?
Even when I was growing up.
Were you allowed to study music in school?
No, my parents actually never wanted me to do arts. They never actually wanted me to do arts.
Well, that was your dream.
That was my dream. And I kept on that, and today they are proud of what I've become.
Because you're successful?
Yes, because I'm successful in it. Because I've decided to ignore certain negative comments on studying art and all of that, which is very key. Now,
so Franca talked about incorporating vocations, right,
yeah,
into school's curriculum. What's your take on this?
Yeah, you can't do without it. You can't do without it, because at the end of the day, you discover that a child goes through the four walls of the classroom, and the school doesn't go through such child. So it is very important that every child who goes through the four walls of the classroom is allowed. We have the classroom going through such a child.
Okay, let me try to wrap my head around this. You say a child goes through the walls of a classroom, yeah, but the classroom doesn't go through the child.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Now you discover that after learning a trade or learning a course, such child doesn't know what to do with such knowledge.
Which Franca called employability.
Absolutely.
Ah.
So we've had cases like that where students go to school to study courses because their parents has asked them to study such courses, not what they actually would have wanted to study. Mm-hmm. So,
which is where the aspect of guidance and counseling comes in.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm. Yeah, so you're saying children should be steered towards their passion.
Towards the passion, because at the end of the day, if you decide to tailor what the child should learn, the child may not be able to become what he or she really wants to become, and then such child in future becomes a problem to both the parents and the society.
Yeah, but I mean, this show is called Business Insights, right? And vocations is very lucrative, like Franca said.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so would you want to speak to that as we wrap up? How, if you finish from school, you don't have to go for blue-collar jobs anymore. You could start your own skills, and then you can become a profitable businessman or woman. As we wrap up.
Yeah, when I speak about this, I take myself for instance. While I was in school studying arts, I was actually doing assignments for even my seniors, and I was paid for it.
Oh,
absolutely. Now, while I used that to pay my bills, I used that to buy books and all of that. So, a child who acquires such skills finds it difficult to have funds, because when there are no jobs, of course we know there are no jobs, but you can create job for yourself. You can create job and then you employ people.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Dan is the MD, CEO, Brother Art Productions. He's also a public affairs analyst and skills acquisition enthusiast. As we wrap up this segment, though, we talked about the budgetary allocation to the education sector earlier on, which Franca actually, she spoke to that a lot. But what are your thoughts, final thoughts on this topic as we wrap up?
Well, if a nation that doesn't invest so much in its educational sector is killing the educational sector, is killing manpower, is killing the human capital development that's supposed to be in such nation. So a nation with poor educational investments will not strive very well, especially in the global space.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right, so on the show today, I've had a couple of guests. First and foremost, we had, well, not first and foremost, but one of my guests who came on board first was Franca Asiebunam. Franca, like we said, is a learning and development administrator at JetLink IT Academy, and she also has 3 decades of experience in Hakiti, and also Dan joined us on the show today. Like we said, Dan is a public affairs analyst and also a skills acquisition instructor. Well, that's a package for you today. Why don't you join us again as we continue this series on budgetary allocation to different sectors of Nigeria's economy, right? I have been your host, Vivian Oguche. A big thanks to my colleague, Alfreda Ambebasi, for the package earlier on. To everybody that made the show a big success. Thank you so much. But the bigger thanks goes to you for watching. So if you liked it, keep a date again with me, same time, same station. Until then, bye for now.